This is where all of your finished products in the world come from. 40 staff members, you're running the factory at $1,200 per hour. Imagine sitting there 12 hours a day. All you're doing is literally listening to the earphones and making sure every unit works. If you want to build your own custom Bluetooth earphones, you're looking at almost 120,000 USD. So never go for the factory that offers you the cheapest, because you know, if they don't make money, they're not going to look after you. Remember, everything in China is about relationship, guys. All relationship, and that relationship is more valuable than any contract you put together. One of my favorite parts about Chinese factory tours is understanding capacity and learning about how well they can produce and manufacture. It's one of the key things when choosing a factory to work with is they have not just quality control, but also production capability. Because if you end up scaling when you're starting, it's okay if it's 1,000 units, 2,000 units, but you need to be able to see if your brand actually blows up, if they can handle 20, 30, 40, 100,000 unit production lines at a time as well. So it's always good to check out the factories. You can usually book in with the sales manager that you're speaking to, and they'll take you around the factory to have a look, just to make sure that everything they're doing is correct and above board, and also the quality of their production as well. So yeah, let's go check it out. I'll take you guys with me so you can see from a point of view perspective what a tour looks like and what questions are asked and how I ask questions too. A lot of factories nowadays in China know that they can't make money just OEM or producing for other people. So nowadays, 这都是原材料, okay. Okay, so nowadays they all manufacture their own brands as well internally. Wow. This is all of their raw materials, parts. It's very cool. 这都是你们也自己做的吗？还是别的工厂帮你们代做的？都自己做的 ，OK。
做这个工厂是在斜对面。
OK。
这边是我们电子厂。
OK。Electronics。
可以进去可以。
好，参观一下。So this is all individual components. PCB boards. Or PCB. This 这也是的吧？
对，
样品。
这是有问题的。
有问题的 faulty products。这
是按这些所有的定料的话，就会
QC。
再检验，才会落厂里面去。
OK。做 QC 的吧。So this is where they do quality inspections. They check batch by batch, individual parts as well. They'll check. And then they've got standards as well, which is really good. That's very, very important, is they have their own internal QC, which they QC parts, finished components, and then you can have external QC afterwards. So now we're going up to third floor to look at production. Very important to check out their lines. So production lines are critical in terms of scale as well. So understanding what they can do and their capacity. This is what Chinese factories usually look like. Cleanliness is clean as well, contrary to popular belief. These are the production lines, so you can see here. All the staff are treated like lab staff almost. Extremely clean environments, which is very good to see, contrary to popular belief that China is full of sweatshops. These are pretty much advanced production lines. So you can see they're all producing earphones, machinery, very high tech as well. You got PCB boards, assembly, a full line. There's 现在有多少这个工人？
工人
30个吧。
有40多人。
40多人。So there's 40 people working on this line currently, just assembling this batch of product. So you can see a lot of it is still hand assembled. Everyone is working, they've got their own individual roles. And then there is a QC manager that's watching their work as they work away. So you can see all the soldering, all the individual part components. Everyone's got their role in the supply chain, in the line. You can see all the components individualized. So now this is where you can assess, at scale, if you were to run 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 units, how much line capacity they have. And that's the line manager over there, just doing QC. And she was taking videos and photos before to make sure that she has progress reports as well. So their production capability is about 2,500 to 3,000 units a day, even up to 4,000 depending on the product. So you can see here, she's doing a QC check. And she's teaching him how to assemble it properly. So you can see, even in the line, it is very important that everyone does their job right. So the line manager here is making sure that the assembly of this component is done right by this staff member. He's likely a newer staff member. So the line manager is here doing QC and sends it off to the next checkpoint. So she'll check his work, make sure that all the assembly is done correctly. This is pretty cool. Very rarely get to see this QC stage. So this is a very, very good sign for when you're visiting a factory because of their care and their procedures and their process. This is something that you want to see. So they have QC chambers here. 这什么东西的？
测降噪的 ANC 降噪的。
Oh, okay. So that's a machine that tests active noise cancelling. So testing the ANC. Okay. Yeah. All the individual components.
这边是测试这个它的喇叭听筒的灵敏度、曲线、频响的。
Okay. So this machine also tests the audio quality of the speakers that are inside the earphones. So you can see that you can put the device in there and then it will give you a graph and reading as well, whether it passes or fails, as you can see there. 你们每一个会拉出来多少次啊？
每一个的可以测100%测。
100%. Okay, so they will test every single unit, which is very good. I thought it was a random quality inspection where they take a couple out, but they test every single unit.
这是测 RF， 发射信号的。
Radio frequency, so RF. 这都测 RF， 两个测 RF。
然后这边测完了，这边就是老化。
OK。
测完了，然后这边老化。
哦。这就是一直充电，看到什么时候充坏掉，对吧？
对。
Okay. And then this room over here is for electrical QC, so they will continuously charge the device until it fails. So this is where they test how durable the devices are, which is really good. You can see you got a massive charging station there, and they'll just keep the devices on charge. Batteries, battery assembly, case assembly. It's very good to see that they QC all the components and as well as all the units as well. So there's a lot of QC which leads to a quality product, and that is a very, very good sign for a factory once again. And over here we have more.
产线测完了以后，这边也会用这台综合测试仪去全测它的功能那种。
哦 ，OK。像蓝牙这些都测。
生产线的仪器它只是用数据然后来判断。
哦 ，OK。
这个的话是要靠人
来听的，
来再来看识别的。
Okay, so this station is final QC, where they will go through after the mechanical and theoretical tests. They come into here for a physical test, where they have a human, which actually listens to each individual device to make sure that it connects well, it works well, and that the audio quality is good. So she'll check now, not just the magnets on this, she'll literally listen to each individual earphone to see if everything is okay. So she's checking if all the buttons, speakers. See, now that's very, very impressive. Imagine sitting there 12 hours a day, all you're doing is literally listening to the earphones and making sure every unit works. The 细节, very good. They're very detailed with their work in this factory. It's quite rare to see stuff like this, so you can tell that these guys have been in the game for a long time, and there's a reason why they are performing quite well. And this is also one of the only reasons why China has mass production capabilities.
这是雷雕，就是印刷
Laser, laser 和 printing, laser machine. Okay, so this is where their laser logo's on. Yeah, so like I was saying, this is one of the only places in the world where you have mass production capability. Why? It's because labor is still relatively cheap compared to the West. Imagine trying to run a line like this in Australia. 40 staff members, you're talking everyone's asking for 30 bucks an hour. 40 staff members, you're running the factory at $1,200 per hour, okay? And you can only produce 2,000 to 3,000 units a day. Let's use 3,000 units a day as an example. You've got $1,200 an hour of staff expense at 8 hours a day for a full production day. So you're looking at a total of, what is that? 9,600, call it 10,000. $10,000 in staffing cost to produce 3,000 units, which means each unit has inbuilt $3 of labor cost, excluding materials, excluding time, excluding QC. So that is just for actually assembly, okay? That's assembly, which is insane. So now you're running $10,000 a day production just to get out 3,000 units a day. So your end product cost for each unit is going to be significantly higher than what it would be here in China. 还有对吧? So is mass production like this feasible in Australia? The answer is probably no. And also your staff will likely never want to be in a factory assembly position like that, 5 or 6 days a week over the year as well. Most of us are quite entitled. We switch jobs every 12 to 18 or 24 months. So you're going to lose staff and you're going to lose skill every single time.
这边的话就是我们入仓前的话，入库前的话还会进行一个抽检，生产线是全检。
这是 random QC 了，对吧？就是随便选几个来测。
是按照 AQS 的标准来抽检。
Okay.
对。
So now this is your random QC before the final.
这边然后有个抽样标准。
Okay. So they have a QC chart for how many units they need to QC out of how many total units. And then this is the final stage before it goes into packaging. And you can see here that the girls are randomly pulling out per batch what's good, what's not, just to see if there is a final fault percentage. And she'll see here, and you can see she's literally listening to them and tapping on them to make sure that they work. And if it passes, then she'll wrap it up, put it into a sleeve, and that goes into final packaging. So now he's taking us to the lab. You can see this is already a second warehouse in the same facility. So they're definitely pumping volume for these guys. They're definitely selling millions and millions of units a year. You can tell just by when you walk into a factory how crazy it is. Also, if you look up, all of those up there are what we call dormitories. So factories usually in China, what they do is they cover your salary, they cover your accommodation, and most of the time they cover your food as well. So the bosses, when they're hiring, they'll hire 50, 100, 200 employees. He will buy an entire factory or warehouse area that has apartments, and then he will give all the staff apartments to live in. If you're high level, you'll get an apartment for yourself. If you're low level, you might split an apartment with 3 other people. But you do not need to worry about your accommodation. And you can see here, this is the kitchen. All of their meals are covered as well, so you do not need to care about food. 食堂对吧? So all you need to do is just focus on waking up in the morning at 8 o'clock, going to the big kitchen where everyone gets to eat. You can see they're prepping food for everyone. All of this is included. And all you need to focus on is literally rocking up to work, working your full day, and you're good. They've covered your living expenses here, so you don't need to stress out, and all the money you make, you usually send back home to family, or you have your little living costs, and then on Sunday you can go out with friends. So this is their lab, and they do all of their experiments here, their testing.
这像是在做一个
连接。
产品的一个老化的，然后一个循环播放的一个测试的。
So now they're testing connectivity. You can see they do their experiments with different types of phones. You've got iPhones, you've got Android phones. They're testing how easy it is to connect them. Lots of different testing equipment, which is very cool. See, voltmeters.
这是台 ESD 测试的设备。
ESD 测试什么东西呢？
测试它的静电。
Okay. So you can see, you can test everything here, even weight.
这是线材的摇摆。
So this one vibrates the devices.
这是盐雾。
Wow.
它的一个抗氧化性的。
So this tests for any sort of oxidative damage from saltwater sprays as well, which is very interesting.
这是
速度嘛？
对，滚动，就是把产品
So they chuck the devices in there and they roll it, and it rolls around, so you can see how durable they are.
这是模拟运输的一个测试。
Okay, so lots of different tools, lots of different machines and devices, all for testing humidity, temperature, all testing, so they can figure out their water resistance.
电池老化。
Battery durability as well, for all the different sizes. Wow. So it's very good that you have factories who actually look after their R&D. R&D is incredibly important, especially if you want to do consumer electronics. You have to make sure that they're safe, they're rated correctly, they have the right certifications as well. So these are all crucial in the inspection process as you're looking at the factories and seeing who you can potentially work with. And this is why I understand that with this factory, their OEM costs and their MOQs are slightly higher than some of the other factories that I've visited or have spoken to so far. And I can see why now, and it also makes sense. It just really depends on what stage of your business they're at or you're at. And in this situation, this company or factory looks to be a factory that would be very suitable for the scale-up phase, but we won't know how good they will be technically for the startup phase. You can also see here as we're walking, these are all the staff's bowls. They have their own bowls, and so everyone still gets a little taste of home. In China, the working environment is quite rough, but that is just how it works. You can't compare it to the West, because how it works here is most of the time staff members will leave their hometown, wherever it is in China. It could be in the bush, in the village somewhere, in the forest, I don't know, in the farms, and they come into a major city to work for opportunity. You know, they make anywhere from 5,000 or even less, 3,000 to 10,000 RMB, which is about 800 to maybe 2,000 AUD a month. And they move into these areas. So they're usually away from their family for long stints of time, usually away from their families for 4 to 6 months at a time, and go back and visit during holidays. So that's the Chinese working lifestyle. Very, very, very different to the lifestyle that we're very accustomed to in the West. So you can't judge them. This is just how it works. It's also not slave labor, because there's massive rules against it now, and it's also not unfair, because this is literally how work culture is in Asia. China is now becoming more and more looked at from a Western world perspective, so they have tightened up a lot on workplace sort of quality and standards, as you guys have seen in the labs today. It's immaculate, it's clean. They're in lab coats to build tech products, which is crazy. So yeah, very, very, very interesting. So we were just in the assembly factory. They also own their own speaker factory as well. So they build their own speakers and R&D their own speakers, which go inside all of their earphone and technology products. They also own their own mold making factory, so they can produce their own, what they call in China, simo, which is private molds. And that allows them to be very quick and be end-to-end in the production process. And that, once again, shows you their ability. And you can see here in factory number 2 that they own, which is literally We just walk there, about 1 minute. Look at the size. Another dormitory there full of staff as well. So you can see on their production, the molds will be connected into the little components and they will all need to be trimmed and snipped off. Almost like when you're prototyping with 3D printing, you have all of your components with supports, and that's how they make the molds here as well. This way.
那边是 QC，
这边是 QC.
对，模具厂的 QC。
Okay. So you can see mold making QC is right here. And she's just checking all the individual components, making sure that they're all clean. They've broken away from their supports. That's a tiring job, that one. That is not an easy job. Your eyes are constantly straining, but here's the part I like best, the machinery. So you can see here. Yeah, you can see these guys have serious capability. These are all their plastics machines. You can see here.
这就是那个我们的 TG16的。
You can see little individual components are pushed out of this machine here. So you can see here, individual components comes off the line. The machines are pushing parts over there. And she's cleaning up all the supports. Look at that. And she'll sit here and she'll clean that up. It's still a very labor intensive process. And this is probably one of the most hardcore parts about manufacturing. This is where all of your finished products in the world come from, right? They come from factories, they come from places like this, where all these individual components have been touched either by a mix of machine and man, or mostly machine or mostly man. So you can see it uses a lot of air to move things around, and then you have all your molds. These are what molds look like. So all the hot plastic gets pressed into the mold, and that forms the different shapes that you want. And each of these molds are loaded inside of these machines here. And then inside the machines, they will then push out the hot plastic. And that hot plastic is what ends up being components.
这是水口不要的。
Components and parts. 这都是坏的，对吧？
水口料。水口料。
Oh, okay.
对，这是不要的。
不要的 Yeah, so this is all like rubbish and waste. And that will get recycled later on.
这个产品的支架那个。
对对对，它支架，然后把它剪掉。对。这都是你们的模具对吧？对。这么多模具。Oh wow. Oh wow. 这是做的。So this is the mold factory, and it's actually relatively clean compared to a lot of the factories that I've seen for mold making. So that's also another good sign. So everything so far is green flags. You can see the different dies and the different components, copper dies. And then you can see all the little individual components for pressing out the plastic components for each of the devices. And you can see all the mold. 对。
这是做模具的。
对对，铜的，对。And then you can see all the machines here as well. And then what that does is it cuts and makes and creates the molds too for all of the different CNC machines, as well as your, these are where you can see the copper mold there too. So there's female and male components of the mold making process. Very impressive stuff. So all of these big things are the actual molds that get loaded into the machines. Super heavy duty production molds, these are called, and then that's where they'll go through thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of units. So you can see this master is assembling some of the molds. 这就是个新模具对吧？
对对，新模具的。
So you can see this is all mold assembly. Everything is built so that the components can be made and pushed into here. You can see the plastic will go through the channels, and then it'll fill the gaps, and that's what then hardens up and turns into your components that look like this. So you can see here the plastic injects through the little supports, and then they come out into individual parts. So whenever you want to launch a new product and you want to design a new product, you will need to think about how the mold is being made, because the mold costs you money. Each component in a mold usually costs anywhere, depending on the size, the quantity, also if it's a production or a sample mold, can go anywhere from 400 USD up to 20,000 USD per component. So it really depends on how intricate your design is. So this is what manufacturing looks like in China. It is a hectic process. Incredible. I love the factory visits because it actually shows you and you can actually see where your products begin from, because just like chicken or the egg, this is where the egg is. And you want to figure out if you're going to be producing products and releasing them into the world, what sort of partners you want to have behind you. And starting with a company like this is likely going to cost you, including if you're doing custom mold making fees, MOQs, labor, cost price, negotiations, and obviously their margins. Well, everyone needs to make money. So never go for the factory that offers you the cheapest, because you know, if they don't make money, they're not going to look after you. Very simple. So yeah, in this situation, rough MOQ, 3,000 units, $40 US a unit, $30 US a unit. So what are you looking at? 30 times 3,000, about 100 grand. You're looking at about 100,000 USD, that's just for production, excluding your mold making and mold production, call it another 20 grand. So if you want to build your own custom Bluetooth earphones, you're looking at almost 120,000 USD all in for production batch number 1, which is about 3,000 units. And they will probably finish that in about 2 to 3 weeks for you. So now you know, and good luck. So whenever you eat at a restaurant, usually you would have to wash your bowls and cutlery because they're scared of contamination and dirtiness. So no matter what, when you go into a restaurant, you'll usually have boiling water, and then you'll have a wash bowl in the middle where you can wash all of your utensils and make sure everything is clean. They're very particular about being clean and germ-free here. That's all the restaurants. All right, so now we're gonna have lunch with this factory, and this is where you discuss more business. So this is for testing the IPX waterproof rating. That's good. All very proper, flow meter and everything. So you can check how much flow, and then you can test the waterproofing. And that's a 1 meter deep bucket, so they'll test that for how long the device can stay underwater. Okay, very cool. So this factory number 2, they have, they're in the middle of relocating actually, so everything is a mess. They've just bought a brand new factory that they're doing up, but this is their sort of manufacturing and assembly section, and they are in the middle of moving factories. 这都是小零件，这都是 speaker 的 PCB 板吧？对 ，speaker 的。哦 ，OK， 对。这款算是我们的爆款。哦 ，karaoke， 卡拉 OK 的。这个我们公司是开创了这种就是分体式的 karaoke speaker
小的
那种小型台，是我们开创的。
这个目前应该卖了，我们自己卖了200多万套的。
哇！
市场上就是，但是市场上其实应该已经。
这是一个爆品。
500-600万，我估计可能应该已经不止，就很多抄袭的这种就卖得很便宜。对。
哇。
音响。
speaker assembly lines。
便携式的那个小音响。
嗯。这个。
它把 opener 就是把收纳进去了。
哦。
把麦克风收纳到。
放到里边去了。
对，这款音响我们。
第一代我们是分体的，就是。
啊。
这一代我们是分体，但是可以给它
在
沃尔玛。
哦。
哎。
沃尔玛那个中国大润发你知道吗？也有那个台湾那
个。OK。
也是在。
哦 OK。
中国排第2名的那个。
那沃尔玛从你们这边一次性会订多少辆呢？ Whew. What a long day it has been. And I'm currently at the high-speed rail train station. And in China, the best way to get around is by high-speed rail. I probably should have come by high-speed rail this morning, but I decided to get a cab. So I'm just gonna quickly break down the entire day for you guys and what's been happening. So this morning, woke up at about 9 o'clock. Usually you want to try to arrange your factory visits quite early in the morning. They often start work around 8:30 here, 8 o'clock in the morning even. Best to try to get to your factory before 10. So it gives you a good solid hour, 2 hours to negotiate, talk, do a tour, and then they'll take you to lunch. So that's exactly what happened today. I jumped in the cab at around 10 a.m. We were supposed to meet at their showroom office. So a lot of factories here are split into showroom office as well as their actual production facility. And if they're big, they have multiple. So yeah, if they're massive, like both of these ones that I visited today, they have 3 to 4 different factories plus a head office plus an R&D lab. These guys are massive. So the second warehouse was the one that I visited later on today. We didn't actually inspect anything at all. It was actually just to build relationship. So today I built relationship and I went to see which supplier I can work with. And I'll just give you a rundown of all the psychology of today and also the process. I'm also keeping an eye on the time so that I can make sure I actually get onto the train at the appropriate time and I don't miss my train. So yeah, this morning started my day at around 10 o'clock, jumped into a Didi all the way to Dongguan. So it took me to Dongguan, which is about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours out of Guangzhou city. And then got there to the factory, took a tour, as you guys saw earlier on in the video. Went through the tour. The tour allowed me to inspect their qualities. That was a phenomenal factory. Don't get me wrong, that was a phenomenal factory. They're definitely a very, very top tier factory. Good processes, good R&D, good QC. But, and big but here, is even though it's good, they had a lot of issues with the quality that I want because Chinese quality expectation and standards is very different to what the West wants. Well, for me, particularly the Australian market and potentially the US market. So that's something that I learned today, is that even though the factory may be of quality, it doesn't give you what you need. And so that's going to always be an issue because ultimately it comes down to can they produce and deliver on what you need, not so much what they're pushing on you. One thing I didn't like about Factory One was that they were constantly pushing their distributor flow versus what I wanted, which was more OEM. I wanted to produce my own products and develop, and they're a little bit less flexible in terms of what I needed and what I wanted. So that for me was the only red flag, was their flexibility, and that's likely because I was dealing with the sales girl, not even the sales manager. I think she's mid-tier sales, not manager level / boss level. And I think that was one of the major issues there with Factory One. So that's my psychology going into it. Everything else is good. They're a growing brand. They're trying to build their own brand rather than focusing on the OEM part, which is concerning yet not concerning, whatever it is. But they are definitely building their own brand to increase their profit. So that means that they will eventually end up being a competitor to me if they can't do what I want, or I will need to have a lot of consumption or buying power in order to produce what I want through them, at the risk of them stealing my technology, designs, etc., etc. This is why contracts are very important, but contracts don't hold up well in Asia, as we all know. So relationship is incredibly important. So it was quite dry communicating with them. The factory manager was more of a conversationalist than the sales manager, which was very interesting. Maybe it's because he saw a little bit more of my curiosity and also not just my curiosity, but in terms of what I wanted, he kind of saw that I knew what I wanted and what I was talking about. So that's one thing there. So that's Factory One. It's so loud. Moving on to Factory Two. Factory Two is a factory that I had found online previously. I had already started to sample all of their products. I literally bought a sample from their entire range. So by doing that, I kind of already knew what I was going into. And I just wanted to kind of verify and come through and inspect today. So they just told me when I got to the factory today that they're moving factories, which is great because they understand the need to not just upskill, but they raise their standards, which I really, really like. I also noticed that they've manufactured for Disney before and other brands, and they also have their own brand, and they're top one as well. What that means is in China, they have ratings and rankings for brand sales. So they are top one on certain selling platforms, and they have done over 10 million, 10 million units just last year in their own domestic brand. So they're big, like that's massive. 10 million units, even if they're selling them for $40, $50 each, these guys are a $500 million company just from their own domestic branded sales. Massive, massive. And I think I was speaking to, these are proper manager level sales, as well as one of the shareholders in the business. And so they were a lot more engaging. We had tea today, so they invited me into the tea room. We shared tea together, and we had a long conversation, not even about business. I was there from 4 p.m. It's currently 7, so we had a 3-hour conversation around politics, world events, news, branding, marketing, sales techniques, strategies. They asked about my plan. They asked what my goals were. And they were much more interested in being aligned with what I wanted. And they asked me what my idea was. They asked me for how I would see this working. And the idea that I came up with, they accepted the possibility for it compared to Factory 1, which were a lot less flexible with my original idea in terms of how I can penetrate the market from a low risk, low MOQ level. So it's all about relationship. And if you get that relationship component right, you can actually game the system a little bit, manipulate your MOQs, but also demonstrate how serious you are in building the brand. They know that I want to own the Australian market. They know that I want to dominate, and they know that I have a track record of dominating my market. So that's a good thing. I'm not afraid to invest into them, and I'm not afraid to also come up with smart ideas for us to tap into new markets together and also win together. So the goal for us is to build a company/brand together and get to a position where we can do 3, 4, 5,000 orders a month. That's the target. And if I can do that within the next 12 months, I'll be cheering. I will probably have a 10 to 20 or even $30 million a year tech company in Australia if we were to achieve our targets, which is great. You'll see me as one of the next entrepreneurs in this market space. So yeah, we'll work on some R&D here together now, and we'll potentially move forward with a test. I like them. It felt more like talking to family with my conversation with them and the dinner with them versus my lunch with Factory A, where it felt like, they really just kind of wanted to push me forwards towards working with them from a distribution level, which I didn't like as much. I don't want to really just flog their brand and be a distributor. I really want to be an owner of my brand and the brand equity that we're creating as well. So Factory 2 seems to be a lot better, even though their assembly line, even though their production line, and even though the entire factory was a lot messier and not as organized. I can understand that because they are moving factories at the moment, so shit's everywhere. And it's the same thing for my warehouse back at home. We're always so busy that we don't have time to clean up all the time. And that's actually a good sign for me as well. If your factory is super clean or your office is super clean, it means there's not enough chaos and shit going around. So for a company that does over 10 million units a year, I was like, this is absolutely understandable, no problems. And same thing, they have 3 factories. That wasn't their biggest one, that was one of them. Their bigger ones are in even cheaper cities and provinces away, in Henan, which is a very cheap tier 4, I think maybe, or tier 3 city right now. So yeah, they have huge production capability, but their head office is in Shenzhen, where their design team is. and they understand the high salary people are moved into the major cities. So that's how they have staff retention. Anyway, that's kind of the rundown. I'm now at the rail station waiting for a train to go back to Guangzhou, where I can't wait to have a shower, jump back into bed. Well, actually, I can't even jump into bed because I've got admin to do. And I have to summarize my day, but yeah, I can't wait to do all of that and get back to my packages back in the warehouse. I have a lot of samples that have arrived today from my existing suppliers and factories. They have been R&D and prototyping for me, so I've got some samples waiting for me to go back home and approve. And that's pretty much what a day in the life looks like when you're doing a business trip here in China. And yeah, it ain't easy. Long days. Lots of traveling, lots of moving around. Like today, I literally, yeah, I'm almost in Shenzhen. I'm probably 30 minutes / an hour out of Shenzhen city. I've pretty much traveled to a different state today just to go and inspect and literally just have lunch and dinners and build a relationship. Remember, everything in China is about relationship, guys. All relationship, and that relationship is more valuable than any contract you put together. All right, hope these tips have helped, and this is a huge behind the scenes. Make sure you obviously like and subscribe to the channel to see more, and drop a comment for what else you'd like to see in the sourcing / brand building world. So let's build this brand together. See you on the next step.